You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the Meta. The Meta controls everything. The Meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.
Oh my, here we are.
Oh my! You're not invisible, but you're looking mystified in the background, which is fine.
I tend to look a little mystified. Don't worry, I am actually wearing a red shirt here. It's just under my sweater. We had our first snow today here in Wisconsin.
Oh,
first
nice.
serious snow of the, and I'm glad that I'm not out there shoveling it because I don't have to do that.
The fiance landed Thursday, and she's never actually seen snow, and it was doing a light, fluffy snow, and it was accumulating everywhere, which was really cool. So she got to see that.
Okay.
This is broadcasting from a undisclosed location. Yep.
Yep.
That's why it's fuzzy in the background. We're hiding them in the background.
All right, so we've got a fascinating show here today. We have K-Color and Aerith joining us, and we have what are we going to be discussing today, Bo?
Yeah. So the first thing we're talking about is the Northern War. To quote K-Color, his exact words were, "I want to come on and mock our enemies, specifically Black Legion and Pandemic Horde." So that's what we're going to talk about first, and then Aerith's here to talk all about money. Money. And he's going to educate some nice people on stream that don't understand this. I don't understand it, so I'm just going to follow along, and hopefully everything will be great.
Holy Thok, 5 months. Thank you very much.
It's a great name. So yeah, it's going to be a fun show. I'm excited.
All right, well, let's get stuck in then. Why don't we? We'll... Wow, just saw 300 PL and NC Capitals jump a gate. Where are they moving to? I don't really...
That's interesting if true, because NC just moved to Vale to kind of shore up something in Vale, and that was last week.
And NC chose their side. They chose Pandemic Horde. They moved to Vale to help Pandemic Horde defend their own space against Test, while Pandemic Horde is up north, losing to GOTG.
Oh, wait.
Probably moving to the dumpster.
Yeah, we talked about this last week, and we said the numbers can lie, but PL hasn't had much lately. There was a big fight that was supposed to go down. I mean, I guess we could jump right into the Horde. And
let's get things started. Let's bring K-Color on board to K-Color. Just give us an overview of what's going on and why our viewers.
K-Color.
He's just kind of cut off. What happened?
Go ahead, talk. Tell us
what's
about the North.
going on and why our viewers should care about what's happening in the North.
Oh, as quote unquote retribution for the faction Forzar payout that we were given, which was cleared with NC Dot according to everyone involved, and involved Horde being unattackable for the time being. They have decided to fight GOTG along with BL, and they've done this by, I guess, dropping a Fortizar in MA TAC in US time zone, that online at some point, and now they're staging out of it. So when you check Dotland, you'd never know this because they haven't taken a single system and branch, including the one that they're currently staging in.
Now, why is that? I mean, I hear that it might be time zone related, but how do you take both Horde and Black Legion and not even... This has been going on for a couple weeks.
It probably is time zone related, but at the same time, it's not like they changed the time zone. Like, this is what the time zone they were already in. Yeah. And like they have to have known that going into it.
So what do you think is next?
I mean, they haven't made any progress. They max CTA'd an alarm clock up this morning, which would have been, it's a weekend timer. It's pretty much their only real chance of taking something. And they lost.
Yeah, that link may not load. There's a link to the fight today.
Like, they just straight up lost.
And what's interesting, this again was a solve contest in a constellation they're staging in. But what's a big deal about this is GOTG is not actively staged in branch. They're having to come up from Declan, all the way from the ass end of Declan, to get to these fights. Right, Rick told us last week that they're actually having a hard time getting there in time, like quick responding, simply because they're not in position to move there quickly. It takes a long time to get up and go.
They're going through exactly what we went through when we lived up there. Anytime we'd have to go over to like Vale or anything like that,
Yeah.
it required a lot of input. You could not react fast enough to anything that was going on, especially as the ADMs got lower and it only took 20, 30 minutes to reinforce a system. It's the same pains that we experienced when we were doing that.
And
it's also funny watching them restage basically in the exact same pattern that we did, where they would go from like a VFK to DO6 to wherever else they staged to. It's basically the same way that we did it.
Another interesting caveat, this war has introduced a Red Alliance joining the side of Serbian squad, which is something to add another like 50, 60 guys to helping them out. Plus a couple other Russian groups have joined in. So it's kind of like, as always, if you poke Russians, other Russians tend to show up to defend the Russians, and that's what it's looking like now. So a couple of drone Russians came out and showed up to this timer too, which was kind of interesting. But on top of that, one thing you'll notice is Black Legion and Pandemic Horde had no one else there. I mean, yeah, no NC out there, no PL there. So they didn't have any big like hitters to back them up in this. So it was a big subcap fight, which they, of course, lost.
Well, I mean, NC Dot's not there, but they're also not there helping GOTG, which is what they're doing with Horde in Vale and Gemini.
That could segue
Has there actually
to
been
Gemini.
much activity in over there in the Geminate area? Like, has the test deployment resulted in?
Yeah, so here's the link to that.
Last night there was a fight over a Satio where it was test versus BL, PH, PL, NC, all with their own kind of fleets. Although PL was probably in the Black Legion fleet because they're pretty much the same alliance at this point. But
yeah, so
Okay.
a couple nights ago, there was a Sotio that they put into Final Timer, pausing the jobs, and there were 660 in local, because I was there for it in case a big fight broke out so we could stream it. There were 250 tests. The rest were hostiles. NC sat on a gate with 60 frigates. PL was on grid with Nagas, but stayed tethered. Black Legion left 10 minutes before the timer came out, and then Horde stayed tethered, and they were instructed not to fight. Because I had a guy in the Horde fleet. And that was for going into a final timer. And then the fight last night, Horde was instructed not to fight till everyone else was in position. And then Horde was told to drop Tempests and try to brawl on top of the test fleets so they could absorb the damage for the kitey fleets of NC, PL, and Black Legion, who came in like other ships.
if this is the way that they're going to play it, I'd like to see Test kind of look at the final timer for the Satios and do reinforcement ops to keep them in final timers for 8 to 9 days and thus make them unusable, rather than actually trying to go for the kill if all they're going to form up for is the final.
Yeah. So they've already lost one Satio in Geminate. That was to space violence and stuff in them. And that was when we showed up with like 1,400 guys and just blew that up.
Yep, that was the one that had the Komodo building.
Yeah, that was
in
the
it.
Komodo. This last two recently are the last two that Horde have that are active. One's in final timer, comes out in like 4 or 5 days, and this one was the second timer, the armor timer, which test. I mean, let's be honest. Pro God's been trying to get a fight out of these guys for like 2 weeks, and they won't fight him. This is the first fight they've taken against Test, and they outnumbered Test almost 2-1 in battleships versus battleships. Which, of course, battleships versus battleships, it just doesn't work 2-1. So
That's one of those things. Is
yeah.
it's curious to me what Pandemic Horde is going to be doing about money, right? Because they lost perimeter to Test, and that was their primary source of income. And since then, they haven't been actively fighting to recover perimeter, as far as I can tell. And I mean, who has been their primary FC through all this? Is it still Alpha Star?
It's still
Pilot, or-
Alpha Star in U.S. time, but in these other time zones, they're having to get other FCs, and they're people that nobody's ever heard of. The timer for the armor timer yesterday or the day before was someone I've never heard of, FCing. So they're having to like dig deep in the woodwork of people that you never hear. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. If you look at this too, you also notice Cabal Expanse is dead. That was their rental income. So they had the perimeter thing, and then they had the rental income in Kavala, where people paid them per system, and so that's been shut down too. They only have 3 systems that have been active in the last 2 weeks, so that's about to die. So their income is gone, and anything that, like, for example, the whole point of like camping Kavala was to drive them into Geminate, and they lost a Rorqual yesterday, and that Rorqual pilot was unbelievably shocked that he got dropped on, which I don't understand. If you're in Geminate, you'd be shocked. There was a good post, and maybe this would be a good time to bring Aerith in about this, where they said that instead of Horde going our route, they went the let's turn this into a big brawly region route. Like turning Geminate into a place where people can have like a fight club instead of trying to make money, and that seems to have gone really bad for them. But I'm not sure.
What do you think is going to be happening there?
I have heard through the grapevine that only a specific group in Horde has been told this, but they're being told to do venal burner missions, and they're creating a group for that. But that's only for the elite within PH that has been told that they're doing.
That's not surprising. That's the same elite group that was told go mine and rat and Kavala, because only you're allowed there, and everyone else stay in Geminate and get dropped on all the time.
Is this the Horde Vanguard or something?
It's probably Vanguard then, yeah.
It's Vanguard or Blessed Beans or whatever
Yeah.
name they call themselves. I don't even know anymore.
Curious. Kalevala says, quote.
Yeah, I know what it is. I've always called it Kavela, and it just frustrates people because it's 4 syllables instead of 3.
All right. So, let's talk about the economy, I think.
Yeah, and I've got a great link to start us off with. The monthly economic report's finally been released 2 months late here, and we got a great guest to talk about it because he knows all about economies.
Although that was after we were accused of suppressing it because of we thought that it was going to look bad for it.
Yeah, there's
the one suppressing.
Yeah, there's some Reddit shitler that thinks we colluding with CCP to keep it suppressed.
Wow. Okay. Well, what's the story here?
Well, so what people don't understand is even we've been at this for 2.5 years. There's still holes in our economy that we've been trying to remediate or fill in or kickstart, and so you're seeing this in the MER finally, where we're home or we're able to redeploy a lot of our attention and ISK and assets to fixing our economy, and by fixing I mean growing it into the next phase. So we're executing on a 9-phase plan right now. This was phase 6. So with this MER, we officially know that we are now in phase 6 of our plan, which is taking over large portions of the T2 economy. Well, we've actually had a problem for about the last 3 months where I largely had to divert focus from the manipulation of the reactions market to try to kickstart our economy. So I've been personally kickstarting large areas of our market. I think DBRB will have a photo where
this is live.
They were huge. Like there wasn't even an advanced material market in Delph. It just didn't exist. So I had to go create it in October, where I just went across all the low ends of all of our advanced component markets for complex reactions and just started them. I just said, I'm going to roll in here with a trillion ISK, just dedicated for kickstarting the market, be like, bang, independent of all the other ISK I do for my personal production reactions. I said, I'm going to carve off a trillion. Here you go. And it actually ended up being about 1.3 just to kickstart these markets. And now we have a very healthy market, which means our tax revenue goes up in this area, which means producers can source these materials easier and they produce them in Delve, which gives us more tax revenue, ad infinitum, right? So now that we have an advanced materials market, finally, we can move to the next thing, which is components, which in the next thing, which is actual doing more of the ships in Delve. So it's a long process. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of ISK and effort, but we're finally getting past the hump we were stuck on for about 5 months, 6 months.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. I don't understand
what are the implications
of
this for everybody else who's not in the Imperium? So, like, as we succeed in this, if we are attempting to take over T2 materials market, are people who are not part of the coalition being impacted by fluctuations that we are responsible for in ways that they don't? How is the random player on the street going to be impacted by what's going on here?
The people are going to first notice are going to be T2 ship producers. So as we take over T2 ships from the top down, right? So JF's down, you know, probably Marauders, Black Ops, Heavy Dictors. You're going to see us coming down the stack over time, and those producers are just going to get blown out. So there's still time for them, but there's probably not a lot of time. If you're not someone that's producing with our margins, with our low Delve input prices, like our Trit and Parite are ridiculously low compared to JITA. So if you're not sourcing in Delve, you're not going to be competitive in those markets soon.
Now,
So when you say that you know, Trit and Pi are a hell of a lot cheaper in Delve than JITA, like what are we talking about here? What does that actually mean?
1/3 to half price of what JITA pays.
Half price, half off JITA for low end
Trit.
minerals. Wow.
Yeah, so we can get half price Trit, we can get 1/3 price Parite, and that's if you're using the market. You can actually get even better prices than that if you're buying raw ore and refining it.
Wow. Okay. That's nuts.
one thing I want to point out is there's a very beautifully done up graph. You were asking what does Geminate look like right now. This compares Delve and Geminate in terms of production value, mining, destruction, imports. One of the guys that has a hate boner for Geminate, made this. And one thing that really sticks out for me, and Aerith, maybe you can explain if this why the game is getting screwed compared to Imperium, is our imports and exports. We're importing 19.5 trillion ISK last month, exporting almost none. None of what we make is hitting JITA. So no one else is getting the benefit of that. Is that what you mean by, like, if they're not in the Imperium, they're going to really start to feel the crunch soon?
No. So first of all, that import-export graph is totally fucking wrong. And old CCP for like 2 years it's wrong. And they look into it. They never did.
It just looks fancy.
But it does look nice. But
Let's stop and figure out why. Why is it a wrong?
They're not filtering out the ships that are so our JF couriers are like a fogger. They obfuscate all of that data so much because so much of the value is in the jump freighters that move back and forth that it doesn't correctly show what's actually happening.
Yeah, I was just saying.
So if a jump freighter jumps in or out of Delve, then it counts as the freighter's value itself counts as an import and export, and CCP's metrics don't zero out the jump freighter itself, the value of that ship going back and forth. Is that
they should basically say assembled ships, or anything that's assembled doesn't count, like an assembled ship or mod.
Or God forbid, when you move your supercap fleet around the galaxy, if that counts as, oh, hey, I had Titans up in wherever. We've got people in Pureblind, and now we're going back to Delve, and that counts. Do supercaps still count as importing if you just...
Yeah, like if you look, you can see our supers move home. It's hilarious. Like Cloud Ring jumps massively in exports, and then you see Delve jump massively. Like it's just it's silly. Yeah, they should really filter anything assembled out of all of these reports, but whatever.
Anyway, so the rest of the game is just not producing on our scale. I looked at the numbers yesterday. There's no other region that's even marginally close to both mining, ratting, and then production. I mean, there was a lot of arguments in the thread related to this October and September that the rest of the game screwed up. And there's a lot of people in the game that are looking at this going, fuck, we have to catch up. And it feels like, when you look at the people complaining, it looks like Test is attempting to do it. They're attempting to make a stable market at home of mining and ratting and production. But no one else in the game seems to be caring to do it. Or if they are caring, they're too late. Are they too late at this point to, keep up?
Yes and no. So every month right now that they're not equal to us, they're falling behind. Everyone is obviously falling way behind every month. Test is screwed because Esoteria, frankly, is just a shit region in this meta. They're doing what they can with that region, and hats off to them. But they're not going to be able to do much more with that region. It's not optimal in this meta. They should move. Whether that means shooting an ally and taking the region, whatever, they need to get out of Esoteria. The rest of the game, though, is even more screwed because they don't have good space. Second, they don't have the infrastructure already deployed in it, which takes trillions of ISK. And third, they don't have the command and control and coordination to do so anyway. So, you'll see people say, well, CCP should do some sort of nerf that hits goons. Like, depletion's a good one, right? Well, depletion looks great on its face, But when you actually dive into what will happen if you put in depletion, it means that we will dominate even harder, because we're the only ones now that could Locust Fleet the whole galaxy, because we have the advantage in Titans and Supers that no one's going to catch if they don't have a mechanic that lets them shit them out, right?
Now, when you're saying depletion, the idea with depletion being that various moons, once they're mined out, they lose their value for a long period of time, and so an alliance would need to be coordinated enough to constantly scout out new moons, put new platforms down on the moons which have become valuable, and then have the command and control necessary to actually utilize those. So it'd be a shitload more work and organization required, which is great for us because that's kind of like what we do. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you extrapolate that to, say, ore belts and same thing. We already do Locust Fleets across multiple regions today. We have already shown that we can migrate our people relatively easy without disruption. So you would create a meta where we're the only entity that can just Mongol horde the entire galaxy at will, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. And even importantly, in this meta, no one would attempt to do anything about it to help their allies. They would just let their allies burn. Like, we all know that that's what's going to occur. So that's a flawed thing. And then if you try to just nerf Rorquals or something like that, well, great, you've just locked in the lead we have, and now no one can catch up. But even if CCP leaves it the way it is today, which is probably the best course for them to allow others to catch up, no one has started catching up yet. Which means every month they're further and further behind. So, like, if they started today, it's a year before they could possibly be somewhere where they could build something like what we have. It's another year to build it. So we're 2.5 years in, and people are just now starting to pivot to this meta. We already have a 2.5-year lock, and realistically, probably going to be about 3.5 years before anyone really gets together.
I see. It's an interesting thing to think about because, again, there's always been this discussion in EVE of there are groups that want to just PvP, and the reason I'm glad that you're here is I have this question, and this topic comes up on our EVE about once a week, and it's usually by guys in PO or NC Dot, and it's the question of, should CCP make moon mining half-half? Half mine it yourself, half of it is automatically mined like the old system. What do you think, Mr. Aerith?
No, like I absolutely don't think you should put passive income back in. However, I do agree, and I have pitched something to CCP within the last year where I do believe there should be some sort of money's idea where you can do PvP to make money. Maybe it's intermittent. Maybe it requires, PvE type players to allow the tree to grow for a couple months before it's worth crashing. But I do think that we've lost something over the years of nomadic lifestyle, right? You always had the empire builders, you already had the top-down income passive people, and then you had a nomadic for a while, but you don't have the nomad cult anymore. And I think EVE is missing that.
I want to bring in a comment from chat here. Velasau, if I got your name right, says, let's be honest, people don't try to set these things up because Goonswarm wouldn't allow anybody else to get set up. And that's a reasonable point. It's something that I think a lot of people believe. But one of the things about the game right now is there's really nothing stopping people on various areas of the galaxy from doing the kind of things that we have done. Like, it actually takes a lot of effort to really burn a whole bunch of refining platforms down. Especially if it's on the other side of the galaxy from us. We have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of platforms down in Delve. And you see Test doing this in their territory. They're putting down lots of platforms. They're building up that infrastructure. And it would require a full-scale deployed invasion to really kind of stop this kind of thing. So that's one of the reasons why this power differential is so unusual. There is literally, and ever since this patch went in a while ago now, there's been nothing stopping any of the Imperium's enemies from platforming all of their moons and doing the exact same shit that we have. And we can't stop them from doing it. It's just, it would require too much burnout, too much effort. But they just didn't want to. They were lazy.
I think, too, when you look at it, at this point, if, say, you're an alliance, let's say a medium alliance, 2,000 or 3,000 guys, and you move into a fresh region that you just conquered, that's restarting all your moon mining. That's 70 days if you want to max frack on every moon that you own. You're going to have to organize the fracking, like we do, to basically become locusts of a region. Like, there's like 5 or 6 things that they'd have to do, and it takes months to set up. It's one of those reasons why I think, and maybe, I don't know if Aerith will agree with this or not, I think that the GOTG deal was good for us in one way, and one way only, is because of how long it takes for them to get everything restarted that we purged out, if they do restart it.
The Guardians of the Galaxy deal was fantastic. I mean, it split our enemies up. We got 40 faction Fortizars, and now all of our enemies are killing each other laughably and in public. Like, that is, like, pretty much the best.
Oh,
it was a little rocky there for a couple days.
I'm talking about, like, Fade and Pureblind. Like, if you look at Fade and Pureblind, they're ghost towns. They don't have any moon reactions. There's no moon mining. An alliance goes in and puts down roots there. It's going to take them a couple of months to get any money out of it.
That is the fucked up thing,
Yeah.
as Corins is pointing out here in chat, is that that deal could have actually been really good for our enemies. If they had stuck to it, they would have had the kind of peace and security that would allow them an opportunity to potentially start closing the gap with us, or at least get off of the starting, you know.
Oh, here we go. It says apparently
They're killing each other.
Apparently, Aerith, maybe comment on this. It says Fade was removed from the MER for this month for that reason, that it's just a dead region.
Well, it doesn't actually have any production, I think, is what we figured out. Like, it was all the baseline. Like, CCP has a white noise, you know, insert, and all the systems were just at the white noise level, meaning no one produced anything.
Shit.
Which
That is absolutely fascinating. Because you just think about, like, how dead does a place have to be considered white noise?
well, I mean, we did effectively carpet
Yeah, that's
burn
not
it, right? We just
Yeah.
burned it down to the rafters, didn't we?
But when you think about it, think about Eve as it changes in war. You know, never before in the game's history could you reset a region to 0 like that. I don't think you could. Like, because with moon mining, you could just plop down a moon miner, and it's back to churning out goods as soon as the enemies leave, right? Like, it's going to constantly produce. With this one, it's like I said, a max frac is 70 days or 71 days or something like that. So that's what, almost 2 months. A little over 2 months.
The salting the earth analogy, like, you know, Carthage is, and Dale points out here in chat, is a good one. One of the things way back in the day when I was on the CSM 6, so this is in the Dark Ages, we talked about how we wanted to have destructible stations added to the game. We wanted to have everything that was in space in EVE be destroyed.
Yeah.
And it took 8 years, but we finally got to a point where now everything that is in space pretty much can be horrifically blown up. And at the time, we talked about the ability to band together and go around the galaxy like a forest fire and sort of burn out all these old structures and all of the old dead wood. And I think Fade is one of the first examples of a region at which you can see now in the fully destructible environment what happens when a region just well and truly gets reduced to ashes. And I think it's awesome.
I do want
that place.
to point out now, though. Someone pointed this out on Reddit this week. As of a couple of days ago, I think it was Thursday night, all of the mandatory asset safeties are now appearing in LowSec from when we did the Fade Pureblind and Declan thing. So any Citadels we killed that had stuff in it, any materials, those Keep Stars that died that had stuff in it, all that stuff, if nobody touched it for the 5 weeks, is now starting to appear in HiSec. The reason we know this is because one of the faction Nixes, I think it's called a Vendetta, just popped up on the market for 90 billion, and we know for a fact that that one was in a Fortizar in the middle of nowhere, so, or not for a Keepstar. So, oh hey, 31 months, thanks dude. So Aerith, is there any other marketing stuff you want me to show, marketing stuff you want to discuss?
Well, I mean, I think generally people just need to really, we're finally past a big bottleneck. Not to say we haven't hit more. Like, we had a bottleneck trip not even 60 days ago that I was freaking out about, going, oh my god. But then when my miners got home, it's like, oh, thank goodness, all the miners are back. Give me that sweet trip, right? But now we're hitting other bottlenecks, and now some reaction bottlenecks, and next we're probably going to hit some BPO slot time bottlenecks that we'll have to resolve. And after that, will probably be some new bottleneck unforeseen yet. So we're still working on our economy actively every month, trying to figure out what's our bottleneck now, how do I solve it. Like, we're going to be redesigning our jump bridge network very slightly, mostly just some lessons learned when we first moved in. You know, we had some priorities that aren't really priorities anymore, and we have a lot of economic structures throughout the region, so we don't have to have the optimization we had before, and the weighting changes because of fatigue to some degree. Fatigue going away is as big a deal as I think some people think it is. But it does have some beneficial impacts because you can actually do 2 bridges to your capital now and not, you know, hate yourself. Like, you can reasonably go to your capital, shop up for, you know, a few minutes and go home. Whereas before that would be. So that's good.
Yeah, I think it's a curious thing. I got another question here in chat. We haven't had too many huge wars this week, so I'm taking more questions than I typically do. Velasau asks again, another question is, why do you see Imperium SIGs and squads being deployed to Geminate? Horde apparently is complaining that we don't want their work walls catching up to us. Well, the fact is that Horde is next, right? Like, we're not going to deploy the entire alliance and go after them or something like that. But we are happy to twist the knife on Horde because they are casino war criminals that pretty much got away with it because they were always just a meat shield for PL. But now, especially because they opted out of the treaty, like, we could have not attacked them as part of the deal
left, aren't they?
Yeah, they ditched the treaty, and so now we are poking them with sticks because we can.
I mean,
and that's how we roll.
If you look at the Eve, there's, I think, 3 major groups in Eve. One is Chinese, and that's FRT's group, and their fights all happen around downtime or post downtime, or just slightly in the Euro. And you can't really do much with SIGs and squads that tend to be late Euro, early US, so you can't do anything there. You can't really go after GHG because we have a treaty with them for a few more months. And then tests are really awesome, and I don't really feel like shooting or camping them because I like test. So you kind of only have GHG or Horde left to Geminate. Like, there really isn't anything left. Like, there's nothing left to do there, you know? So, but that's the thing with Horde, though. I kind of blame Gobbins for this, and maybe you can chime in on this, is that he could have very well just said, look, this is a great idea, let's go make money for 6 months, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do after that, and blow everything up. And he could have very easily just sat back quietly, made a shitload of money, kept probably perimeter, because he could have focused on perimeter, right? Had perimeter nice and safe. Instead, he loses that to test. His rental income would still be going, instead of being cloaky camped for the last 2 weeks, and maybe soon longer. Damn it! Why are you laughing about the laundry noise? That thing's amazing.
I think
it's not wrong. It's just every single
it.
show. It's like become a thing now. Like, I don't even ask what it is.
I mean, it's Saturday.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so you're starting to see that trend where the only thing you have left is really Geminate, and I think that's a lot to do with the way Horde designed Geminate. You don't move to a region like Geminate and hope for it to be peaceful and quiet when every single system you own is in range of Lowsec.
You don't deploy away to fight a proxy war like 3 regions away and not expect people to show up to kill your Redders and Miners. It's exactly what happens to us in Delve. Anytime we go anywhere, people would show up and kill our Redders and Miners. So they can't be in branch fighting GOTG and claiming, oh, why are goons in our space killing our Redders and Miners? Like, it doesn't make sense. I'm completely oblivious to this.
What's great about the Geminate thing, too, and Kikko, I love to hear you talk about this, we only have 1 SIG there. It's not like it's the whole SIGs and squads thing we did to GOTG. There's literally 1 group. And it's one very good elite PvP group, but literally just 1 group of guys who are camping there. So, I mean, I don't know, Kikko, you tend to know things about the way our enemies think a little better than I do sometimes. Like, what are they thinking here?
I really thought I think they thought Darkness would just roll over and they could flip all those renters in branch, and they would have this region that basically Black Legion and NC and PL would be a buffer to, and they could make money there, not have to worry about it.
I think that was an interesting political error, and I think Killer is right in that the Horde people and Black Legion probably did assume that after the Imperium and Friends, with, it wasn't just the Imperium and Legacy Coalition working together to beat the crap out of the Northwest, we had reduced Guardians of the Galaxy to a state where they would give us 40 Fortizars. But what they forgot, like from a psychological perspective, is that betrayal re-energizes people. You can be like down, you can lose a war, you can be like at the point where you're just fucked sideways and you're giving up hope. But if somebody on your side betrays you, which is what Guardians of the Galaxy rightfully sees, the way that Goblins and Pandemic Horde reacted to them, then that re-energizes you. We saw that in the Casino War, where the Imperium was on the back foot and having lots of trouble, and then CO2 betrayed us, and I think that we were able to escape to Saarinen and recover and go through that, because instead of merely losing a war, we were losing a war and then we were horrifically betrayed, which got everybody riled up and bonded together against the traitors, and that worked out really well for CO2 over time. So now, instead of attacking a defeated Guardians of the Galaxy by loudly betraying them, I think that they gave them a second wind, and that's why you've seen no progress whatsoever from Black Legion or from Pandemic Horde in their little campaign.
I think it's bigger than that too, because usually if you want to like what Goblins did, hey, we are resetting you with hostile intent, usually that means you're going to come in and curb stomp them and you're going to wipe them out. Like, there was all this talk of Horde coming in here with 1,000 dudes, like they did every other thing they've been a part of recently in the last few years, and just kind of remove them in a hurry. And they showed up with 100 guys, and then you saw Black Legion's 100 guys. And it was like, oh no, we're just here for good fights, guys. Like, even their FC Alpha Star came out. I was like, no, we're just enjoying the good fights, while you have Goblins screaming from the rooftops that they're going to burn in hell, and we're going to fire and brimstone them. And it feels like a mixed message. Kind of hard to get your guys motivated, I guess, when two different leaders are saying two different things.
Yeah, I don't really know how they're going to square that circle, but you know, I don't think that Goblins has been particularly engaged in any of these things.
I haven't
he was
heard
at
him
Vegas,
broadcast
and
once.
we had like some discussions, but it doesn't seem like that there's any real leadership from the top, because perhaps he's just running Horde like a McDonald's franchise, which is, I guess, his view of leadership.
You mean his exact quote?
Yes. I wish I was kidding about that.
No, he's dead serious. He said this to Vegas. But here's the thing, and not to jump over to something else though, is that
we totally can. It's all good. We have the power to segue here on this
we're gonna segue.
We can jump around between
this
topics if we feel like it. God damn it!
This is a big fucking deal, and Aerith, you can comment on this if you like this or not, because I don't know yet. I'm on the fence. Double XP weekends. Now that PA owns EVE Online, they've introduced their first ever double XP weekend in 15 years, ladies and gentlemen. And in true CCP fashion, it was broken day one, as you were supposed to only get double XP if you were a Omega, and Alphas were only going to get the normal XP. And instead, most of the Alphas got double XP anyways. It was kind 3 days.
It was kind of odd, because the Alphas are supposed to get 25 and then 25. But for whatever reason, as an alpha account, you could claim all and get 2 sets of 25. I haven't actually logged in to check if that was...
It was a bug for a while,
days, or if that was just like it gave you double the 25.
According to someone that showed me, it was double. Because I did it on one of my alphas I was just going through, click yes, 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 yes. And at one of my alphas, it gave me doubles. Yeah, so someone's saying I got 4 sets at 25, and I don't know why. So yeah,
I think I'm going to go ahead and stake out
a
position
yeah, please.
on this. I think it's a good idea, and there's a bunch of reasons why. First of all, it's something that we have seen that works well in a bunch of other types of games. I remember when PlanetSide 2 would have like a double XP weekend or something, and you'd see these insane fights because it motivates people that might have been on the fence about logging in to log in. And as we all know, when people are actually logged into the game, there's more opportunity for people to bump spaceships together and have explosions. I think also it's important because, you know, as you said, they did add a UI element to do this kind of thing. Promotions are a part of online games. You need to keep things vibrant. You need to pull people in. You need to pull people who are lapsed back into the game. And if they have the code and the framework to do a double XP weekend, it's entirely possible that they will be able to come up with other cool ways to incentivize people. And a weekend of double XP is just double SP is just like nothing in the grand scheme of things. So,
it was perfect. It was a great idea. The reason I liked it, and I was on the fence, obviously, but the reason I liked it is because when they pulled the double XP weekend, they also did a Plex sale, a massive Plex sale to go along with it. So they got a bunch of people to buy a bunch of Plex, and then they doubled their XP because you're an Omega account. So it was kind of a perfect from a business perspective. I was just thinking, man, here we go. PA's in town, boys.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a PA thing or not, because I think it's too soon in terms of the release window. Yeah. The acquisition was only formally completed in mid-October.
I know.
October 19th is a deadline. And we also saw, even before the acquisition, that CCP was trying to essentially modernize their MMO model.
Yeah.
The Abyssal sites with the multiplasmids and all of that crap that they had put in was basically bringing EVE in line with the kind of MMO marketing you would see from like 2014, right?
Oh yeah,
Or
no,
even
it's
2012.
yeah, it's great. I mean, even RuneScape does it, and RuneScape's just about as old, and they do double XP weekends. The only reason I know about this is because my fiance likes RuneScape. So,
Well, Aerith, you are a member of the CSM. What's your take on the Double XP weekend? Is
So
there
now
an
just-
official state?
My feedback on it was very positive. I actually asked for more. Like I thought, there's not much downside to having even more skill points injected. That's effectively just, something that's not really monetized well outside of injectors, extractors. So it's not going to be a hit to the economy in any way. It doesn't really cost CCP any money. And no, I didn't have anything to do with PA at all. So I'd like to speed more, but it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah,
that
I liked it.
Double XP weekend, I mean, you could even see a 5x XP weekend because, I mean, what is it? It's just a few tens of thousands of skill points. Like, let's say that, how much actual skill points is it going to be on average over the course of a weekend if you double it for
it'll
a character
be
with decent
150,000. 150,000. So it's a mini skill injector. It's a little skill injector.
Yeah.
Which
In its current form, it's not anything. But if it was, say, 5 time, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Post a picture in Discord of it.
Oh yeah, sure. 1 second. I'll link it in the chat. Yeah, there it is. Perfect. Yeah, what's nice about it is that you have a character that maybe is doing skill training. Like you have like say 10 accounts that you're just making money off of them through skill injecting and extracting. That's a nice little buff, right? Because you're already paying for all the omegas. That makes your skill extractions go faster. So at the end of the day, it's a nice little bump into your income for that. Like, it makes things a little cheaper for the people that are doing that. I do that with all my accounts. Like, none of my characters need to train anything, so all my accounts are skill injecting. So
Yeah, but it's like 8% or something more for the month. It's like whatever.
yeah,
Well, it's a
it works
bigger
for me.
boost for people with more SP that, they get nothing out of injector value.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my thing. Is I tell everyone, hey, if you're gonna get this, always claim it on the character for each account with the highest SP.
Yep. And it's also good. I mean, not gonna say if you want to get a character into Horde, but if you do happen to want to get a character into Horde, you can do a covert Sino covert cloak and a point for 5 injectors. So if you're interested in doing any kind of hot dropping, contact your local space violence rep. They're looking for people who are willing to help and assist with the purge of Geminate. So by all means. You're also back to, just we're gonna bounce around here. Back to Geminate. Everything's timed to U.S. time. I know this because Kendar is our local rep for our space violence group, and he tells us that like he'll go reinforce something, and they will time it to like 4 Eve just to completely avoid space violence and initiative. So that's something
Sounds about right.
that's been happening there, which is pretty interesting considering or I say a vast majority of the firepower that can help Pandemic Horde are all Euro. I mean, of course, they have Black Legion helping them in a big way now, but with Black Legion trying to take on Branch, it'll be interesting to see how much the back and forth happens. Because for them, it's a pretty fucking big trip to go from MA all the way to Geminate, and Black Legion's been doing Titan bridges to get there. They haven't been jump cloning like Horde has. So that's an
I
interesting
mean,
thing.
when Pandemic Horde supplies you with a bunch of super caps, you end up being at their beck and call.
Oh, well, please tell us about this one.
I don't know if he sold them to him for cheap or if he gave them to him, but I don't know if you remember they canceled their whole like Nyx pilot subsidy thing, and then all of a sudden they have some kind of agreement with Black Legion to give them a bunch of Nyxes and stuff like that, and NC Dot had set up their ACLs so NC Dot set up the ACLs so that Black Legion could take their supers from OTEC V over to Venal to drop on GOTG, and no one seems to have an issue with that fact. GOTG does
When was
not
this?
seem that as a betrayal. That was, I don't know, a couple weeks ago before Black Legion said, "Oh, NC Dot is siding with GOTG.
Oh, yeah.
We're no longer on friendly terms with them. Remove your clones from these citadels that they've set up for us." Like,
It's interesting about that, too. I guess since we're going to talk about that, Black Legion's been hiding their super caps on the border of Geminate every once in a while to try and catch space violence. But because they're having to make it so obvious by not being blue to NC Dot and trying to hide that fact, they're having to go about it in really weird ways. So it's really easy to catch them coming because there's only one fucking way to get there. So it's like, you're going to drop on our 100 dreads. Okay, we just don't use them for a week. Enjoy sitting there for a week doing nothing.
It's a crazy meta if you think about it. You got NC that are sitting here trying to be on the fence and figure out, like, oh, one of these kids may win, one of these kids may not, but our kids are fighting. I'm just going to act like I'm impartial, but kind of favor both in some way, so I can side with whoever the winner is, because NC badly needs the meat shield of either GOTG or Horde, preferably both. And if they don't have it, they're screwed. PL's dead. Like, they're going to be hemorrhaging people for probably months. GOTG needs a year to rebuild just for what they had, and they're probably not going to get it. And Horde's going to be broke inside probably 3 months. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is... Okay, Aerith, we got you here. Let's segue again. Where did all their fucking money go? Because according to ProGod, they were pulling at least 300 billion out of HiSec, and according to internal Pandemic Horde, 100 to 200 billion out of their Kavala stuff, with their rental income there. So that's say 500 bill of doing absolutely nothing on the other than getting a paycheck. Where the fuck did all that money go? They had for 2 years, or
500 bill is, in this meta. 500 billion a month is fuck all.
Okay.
Like, we're several magnitudes. I mean, like, think about it. So people ask, why don't you guys go to perimeter? So 300 billion market, let's say they're cut. Let's say it's a 500 or 600 billion market all in.
Right.
That's a fraction of ours. So it's not for us. TES probably made close to that anyway with their economy as it was. You got to factor in the SRP, any infrastructure they had to deploy, any cap caches they had to buy, the cost of running their empire, the payoffs that they're probably making to several entities. Like, that's where all their ISK is going, is one Titan fight, and they're out of ISK.
But this is Horde, though, who doesn't have Titan fight. I mean, they've lost one Titan or two Titans in the last 4 months.
They've lost a ton of shit in the war, though. They lost a lot, and they're always losing tons in Gemini.
Yeah, it's
just and you're assuming that ISK is returned to the Alliance, which I have strongly suspected for a long time.
Oh, it goes in Gobba's pocket.
Very leaky, yeah.
Yeah,
there's a lot of corruption.
No, that's what I'm asking. Is, do you think there's corruption? That's the question.
Fuck yes.
Yeah.
There's no question that there's corruption.
Because it just feels like this is what a couple of older groups like FCON used to be like this, or I think even the old
CO2 with M. Marlin, who was embezzled.
Where you have these guys who know how to control the money because Gobbins is an absentee leader, so they're just raking in a couple $100 billion for themselves. Because you're starting to see Horde get Titans, and these people barely even had enough money for carriers before this. And all of a sudden, these guys are flying Titans. It's like, holy fuck, where did this guy get a Titan? Or where did that guy get a Titan? And so it's very interesting to see where all that money's vanishing. That's been a hot topic now for about a month since the Geminate stuff has kind of ramped up.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly corrupt. We've got a couple of comments here. So usually when we go to subs-only mode, we like to take Q&A from the chat. I want to give a shout-out also to Cale Breinhardt, who was pointing out when we were talking earlier about depletion that one of the last things he did before he previously stepped out of EVE was to help scan more than 1,500 moons right after they changed moons most recently. And that's the kind of thing that our recon team could do, which is yet another argument why depletion would be hilariously good for the Imperium and pretty awful for everybody else. We have another question, though, about, let's see. I saw this up here. It was a question from our dear friend Albion News 24, which is how long before Sort joins the Imperium? That's not happening. And another one, I'll have to go dig it up, never mind. Oh, sorry. Do we really think Gobbins is attacking Sort without permission by NC? I think that NC is not really in charge. I think that they're not technically in charge. I think that NC Dot is currently kind of headless. Vince has not been super active recently, and I think that PL is also in kind of a tragic place. Yeah. So you're starting to see that hostile coalition just kind of turn on each other because there's no man behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's almost like the way I see it is if Vince came back really, really hyperactive and was really like laying down the law, you would know pretty quick if that war was real or not, right? Like you'd know within a few days, are they really fighting each other or is this just a slap fight? And it honestly doesn't feel like you have even Elise. I mean, Elise is, we saw him in Vegas and he's not really playing the game right now. I think Lady Scarlet said she was backing away from the game a little bit. So you have all these big figureheads on the other side that just aren't controlling the ship. And so you have someone like a Gobbins who sneaks up to the wheelhouse and thinks he can run around doing what he wants. And if one of those big leaders shows up, they'll just slap him away, I think. And I think that's where we're at now. Is he's just trying to get away with what he can while he can.
I have a question for Aerith. Well, one of the arguments that I put forward about why the nomadic lifestyle is dead is simply because they've homogenized moons to the point where they're barely worth more than another one, and I feel like this may have a really negative effect on people that only want to hold 3 or 4 moons in a region. What do you think that there's a way to fix something like that?
I think it would have to be a new mechanic. It wouldn't be moons. Like I think moons are fairly okay the way they are. I think there probably is still a little too much supply overall, like because it's taking forever to deplete the stockpiles. Like our stockpiles were originally going to be out by Christmas, and now projections is I can probably eke out till summer, maybe till third quarter next year, before the markets really get wild when we start running out of things. So, yeah, I think it would have to be a entirely new mechanic, like a money tree of some sort that does ISK or something.
Okay.
We have a question here from Scooter, which is, so odds are that some nameless mid-level people say, hey, so they've got the same leaders that boned us repeatedly, let's remake this in a less elite PvP image, or is the North doomed to repeat itself? I'm going to go ahead and say that they're probably doomed to repeat themselves. Like, I think that they're, we're really just not seeing any, nobody's, like, stepping up as a leader to try to reform the, sort of the anti-Imperial Legacy Coalition.
And even the people that are stepping up are the same faces. We haven't really seen a new big name leader come up and like kind of when the White Noise appeared. That was, I think, one of the last groups I remember as an unknown entity just becoming massive and throwing their weight around. You know, they came out of nowhere with 60, 70, 80 super carriers at a time when that didn't exist. And it's like, okay, who the hell are these guys and where did they come from? Like Seahose, I think was the guy's name.
With White Noise.
Yeah, he just came out of nowhere. And I don't know of any recent ones that's like that. Usually it's the same groups that maybe they splinter off and they reform into another name, but it's the same leadership. It's just someone that someone liked that's been around a long time. You're not seeing like any unknowns show up. So when you don't have an unknown show up and it's the same groups that still have these same hates, I said this for a long time. Eve goes in cycles, and usually the cycle, like I feel like we're in the North right now, is you spend months and months and months telling your line members as leaders to hate a certain group, like Pandemic Horde to hate GOTG, that we're not blue to them, guys. We're totally not blue. You can shoot them anytime you want. And when you convince these line members to hate another group, when they become leaders over time, they become the FCs, the recon, the logistics, they eventually become the guys that are like, okay, we've been told to hate them. We're going to go fuck them now. And that's what you're seeing now, is that the war's over. All these people that were told to hate, that we hate each other, are now fighting each other. And that always happens. It's happened about 8 or 9 times since I played the game. And it happened with the old NC, with NC and PL, when they used to be buddy-buddy, and then all the leadership stepped away, new leaders came in, and they're like, yeah, fuck you, fuck you. There's a great picture for that, where it's like you throw a flag that says Team B to a guy, and a guy's holding Team A, and he goes, hey, fuck that guy. It's kind of the same thing. Also, I liked your comment about Recon. It reminded me of a scene in The Hunt for the Red October, where they're like, the Russians have ultra-perfect maps of the Atlantic, so they could do these crazy-ass trench runs that no one else would try in a submarine because you can't fucking see where you're going. It's the same way with moons. We have all of these moons mapped out, so anything that CCP goes to change, it's we're so prepared and mapped out ahead of time. It's like, yeah, okay, here we go.
Well, at least it wasn't a World War II reference.
But Aerith, I mean, wouldn't you say that'd be correct, though? Like, we're at the point now where we can already be adapting to changes before they go live, because we already see them coming, and we're prepared for anything, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, just it's a wealth effect also, because when you have as much wealth as now we have access to, you're in every little area of EVE already. So like we're already invested in areas just by virtue of our economy or what we do or what we're building or what war we're going to need. So when CCP changes something now, it almost doesn't matter what you change when you own everything. So it's not like we're trying to react to changes very often. Like we had all the PI ready for all our bridges before the patch hit. Pretty much no other entity can say that. And so we're prepared, and that is only because of our immense economy.
I'm going to sort of take a question here from Chad and pivot it onto this discussion, because there have been a couple comments about hubris when we're saying all these confident-y type things. And there's a question about, do we think that Delve will ever be invaded? And whenever you see people saying, oh, such and such group is invulnerable and they can never actually be assaulted and whatever, we saw, because we lost the casino war, at least the first part of the casino war, when everybody did band together and come after us, after years of saying that the Imperium was untouchable, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm always skeptical of people getting the hubris, especially us getting the hubris and saying that, we'll never be attacked, we'll never be invaded. It will happen at some point, and that's what we prepare for every day. And if we lose a war, which we've done before, we will rebuild and grow stronger. But I think Aerith's point about a wealth effect is key, is because if you just have a lot of brain power and you have a lot of resources, you don't necessarily have to predict what CCP is going to do. You just need to be in a position where you're able to react and pivot to changes more effectively than everybody else.
Here's a good example, and Aerith, you might like this. Go back 2 years to Casino War. We were just talking about that. All of us that listened to finance and the finance department and goons that moved to Saranen, had a war chest nice and saved up, ready to go, were able to live out in Saranen long enough to us going, okay, we're going to Delve. And every alliance that came with us and everyone that was in Saranen are still alive today, and the rest are dead or dying. Like CO2, FCON, SMA, all are dead or gone. Yeah, Razor. All of these groups that said, you know what, we're not going to Saranen. You guys are idiots. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't need to have a big war chest. They're dead or dying. Well, that's the thing here, too. So, here's a question. Will we ever have a Palpatine Keepstar? Are we ever going to get to that point?
CCP would need to buff it, because right now it just kind of sucks. Like, the stats aren't significantly better than a regular Keep to make it worth it. But if it had some really cool bonus, where if you were really good, you could make your money back over a few years... Yeah, I could see it, but they would have to change the stats or something.
Oh, you'd have to make your money back. So you're not saying it... Like, I would think it'd have to have, like, triple the HP. Like, take 3 times as long to reinforce, or...
that's a given, crazy. But I mean, it has to have massive combat bonuses. Sure, that's a given. That's table stakes. But it needs to have some sort of economic bonus. Like, maybe something not too overpowered. Like, say, 10 times the amount of production required to boost the index in that system or something. Like, something like that, where it's kind of a nebulous thing... And it only costs CCP some ISK, and all it does is let you build more there, like something like that.
Someone says in chat, give it a jump drive, make it movable.
It should start a 1-year timer where if it doesn't get destroyed in that 1 year, it just declares the Alliance the victor of EVE Online.
Or it becomes like a monument, you mean?
That's it. No, declares you the victor of EVE Online. It shuts it down.
Like the servers die, so it's either come at us or the EVE die.
Yeah, I mean...
The doomsday clock.
This question comes up on my show a lot whenever I do the EVE suicide roams, because occasionally we'll take out 50, 60 carriers, and there's no chance they're going to come back, and maybe they do. Who knows? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that it can happen. The fact that EVE has gotten to the point in the Imperium where that is a possibility on some level. When just 10 years ago there was goons and rifters were precious. Carriers are. Fun little suicide fleets because they're so fun to fly around, but that's where the game is going, and that's why I think eventually it's going to get to a point where a whole bunch of people are going to be able to come back and get involved. So yes, we're about to run out of time here, but I do have to mention something real quick, and this is probably going to get mentioned on the Meta Show going forward. Is we are now officially partnered with Blue Microphones again, and in the coming days, coming weeks, you're going to see more and more promotions, more things coming out, and we've got a nice little giveaway going on with them that just got linked in chat. And I'll link it again here, where there's a Fallout 76 Blue Yeti bundle. Aerith probably will comment on this too. Blue Yeti microphones are probably one of the best microphones I've ever seen or used. Like, a lot of professional people use them. I have one. I think Mittens has one. I think Kid Color has one. I think even Aerith went out and bought one. Like, these things are
I've had
amazing,
one.
So.
I've had
Oh,
one
good,
for a while.
more blues.
I got mine. I think I got mine like a month after Mittens got his because he got it, he loved it, and he said something on stream. I'm like, well, I need a new mic. Fuck it.
Yeah,
I'm
this
pretty
thing-
excited about about getting a new headset as well. Blue apparently has
Oh,
their
yeah.
headset, and we're exploring the possibility to display the sponsorship. I'm gonna probably swap this out for a Blue headset too. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
my
good-
I believe I'm getting a Blue headset. I'm gonna get this thing right here. It's called the Lola. It is absolutely cool looking, and apparently it's A++.
Sweet.
Yeah,
I think it's
so,
pretty cool
yeah.
that we're getting into a point where we're able to give away not only a microphone but also Fallout 76 to anybody who wants it. So that's pretty cool. Thank
Yeah.
you to
So
our
yeah, you
sponsor.
gotta click the thing, get involved. Again, these are awesome, cool giveaway stuff, and thanks again to Blue Microphone for coming back to get us. We were with them for a while back in the day, but then they kind of went away from their promotional thing a bit, and now we're back. High fives.
I'll be playing Fallout 76 right after we get off.
How is that, by the way, real quick, before we go?
Well, I just started yesterday. I would say it feels a little empty, as in I don't like the no NPC thing. Like, that kind of bothers me, but we'll see. It's still early. I hope there's more to do, but I'm only like level 5 or 6.
I heard it was a little easy, on the easy side.
Oh God! I usually play like on whatever the hardest mode is.
Yeah.
On Fallouts, if you play any hard mode, this is a cakewalk. Like,
Yeah, that's what
I just walk up and just chop people to death because there's no challenge.
Yeah, I heard the PvP. They're really pushing the PvP, like player involvement. I just want to get a nuke and nuke somebody's base. That's the only reason I'll play it. Well, we're out of time.
All right.
Anything else, Mittens?
Yeah, well, no, thank everybody for coming here. I want to thank both of our guests, Kid Color and Aerith, for joining us. And we will catch you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And one final thanks to Blue Microphones for being our new sponsor.
Yay! All right, bye, guys.
Cheers.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.